Hello and welcome to our third class. Today we're going to talk about how our practice is situated within community and an environment, an ecosystem. Um, Megan's here. Okay. Just going to let Megan come in. Hi, Megan.
Hey.
So this is our third class, and we have about a month between now and our next class. My hope is that you'll meet with your partner, and we'll figure out anybody who doesn't have an assigned partner in a second. My hope is that you'll meet with your partner within the next 2 weeks so you guys can touch base and just share what are you thinking about for your project, right? Just sort of touching base on project ideas. And they can sort of be a little bit of a sounding board for you. I'm also happy to meet with anybody one-on-one, so you can reach out to me too to meet. So Seth and Annalise, you guys could be partners. And does anybody else here not have a partner? And the partner, just to clarify, is the person we met with at the end of our first class. Jessica, you don't. Okay. And Megan. Okay, so how about Megan and Jessica? You guys could be partners. They were randomly assigned for what it's worth. In our first class, I just randomly assigned people to breakout rooms. Um, And if it's somebody who has a different practice from you, I think that's exciting. It could sort of broaden your understanding of what your scope might be. And if you decide you want to work together, which has happened in the past, that's you're more than welcome to. And Seth, did you have a question?
Oh yeah, is it? I just wasn't sure. Are we collaborating on a project or are we just
So
talking about our projects?
you certainly don't have to. It's up to you.
Okay, cool.
The intention for this class is so the first three classes are structured to give you guys information and resources, ideas, concepts, be exposed to a couple of artists. Today we're meeting with Nicole Dextras. And then the second half of the class, which is spread out over about 2 months, is for you to work on your own independent projects. And those could be a project that you're already working on and you want to deepen in, inspired by or informed by some of the concepts we've been talking about. Or you could be initiating a new project. You might just be like, hey, I want to get my studio in order. I want to get a sustainable studio together. Or I want to try and explore making my own charcoal, right? Or you might be like, I want to dream seed the plans for a community project that I'm going to do next year, right? So it's to meet you where you're at with your capacity and for the educators here, it might be like, I'm going to design curriculum, right? Or like explore something with the kids that I work with, right? I'll show you guys some examples of some past projects too. What's so cool about teaching this class online is that people are coming from so many different backgrounds and contexts and practices that there's like a really wide range of stuff that comes through when we see each other's work. Um, so our next class is going to be presentations, or you guys are research presentations, I should emphasize. So you don't have to have your project finished by next month or the end of class for that matter. Remember, we're really process oriented, not product oriented. So our next class, you guys are going to give short presentations about your research so far. So usually what that looks like is somebody shares a slideshow. You could do a little performance, on average, depending on the number of people, we'll essentially break the 2 hours up into how many people are present, which usually looks like between 8 to 15 minutes. Um, and it's entirely up to you how you use that time. You might want to have a conversation with us, just an open conversation, or you might want to spend the whole time sharing something you're working on. But what I do recommend is saving a little bit of time for feedback, even just a couple minutes, so that you can receive some feedback about what you're working on. And then our last class, oh, here's Eve. And then our last class is going to be presentations, uh, a bit more formal presentations where you'll still receive a little bit of feedback, but those, if everybody's okay with it, will be open to the wider eco art space community. I think last time we did the class, there were about 60 people who signed up and 40 people came. So I think people really like to see what y'all are up to in this class. It's cool. And it can really fluctuate though. We can have like between, 15, 20 people to like 50 people. It's like it's kind of all over the place. But I also encourage people to like type responses into the chat too. We can like save and document those. Um, so today we are going to talk a little bit about how your practice is embedded in community and the ecosystem. And I'm gonna just run through a few questions, prompts for you guys to think about in navigating this in your own practice. And then I have two options that we can do with before Nicole joins us at 3. And I'll tell you about those in a second. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, so oh, I wanted to also, something I didn't get to last class was I just want to briefly run through the process of making charcoal, because it's one of my favorite things to make wildcraft, and it's really easy. So, and I'm going to share, and I'm sorry I haven't done this yet. I will give you guys access to this slideshow that I've been sharing with materials. So you essentially just traditionally what's used is willow and wild grapevine. I have found that river sticks are my favorite to use. I'll explain why in a second. A pocket knife or a knife, a tin can with a tight fitting lid. Whoops. Metal wire cutters, hammer and nail. And essentially, you are uh, so first of all, preparing the wood, you're scraping off the bark and the cambium layer, which is this green layer, um, uh, before you fire it. So here are a couple girls doing that. They're just sort of scraping off with a knife, like the cambium layer and the bark. The cambium layer is inside the bark. And then you put those in your tin can. And then what I do, so what happens when you put them in the tin can, you put the top on, you poke a couple holes in it. That's part of what the hammer and nails are for. The oxygen builds up in there, so that's why you have to seal it shut, or else the top could explode potentially. So that's why we use the wire to seal it shut. So what I do is I'll show you. I poke a hole with a hammer and nail on the lid and the sides, and I tie it together that way. But basically, you just put it in the fire for 1 hour and that's it. You got your drawing charcoal. Why I love to use river sticks is because the water has already done the work of wearing off the bark and the cambium layer, and it also has a really smooth finish, and the finish translates when you're drawing. So like these are the same sticks that I showed in an earlier picture, but they get smaller and they sort of maintain their texture in a way. So yeah, I love using river sticks because they all and you'll find it's sometimes they'll like crumble and fall apart, but you just have to play around with different types of wood. But eventually, yeah, you'll certainly get some that are just draw like butter, and it's just beautiful to work with. The reason we use the tin can rather than just using charcoal at the bottom of a fire pit, right? Which you can do. You can grab some like dry coals and just draw with those. They tend to be really rough. They'll fall apart. They're very different from like drawing quality charcoal, like vine charcoal, which does draw like butter if you tried it. The can protects the wood from being submerged in the flames and it slow cooks them, essentially. So that's sort of the purpose of that. Okay, I just want to share that. So now let us talk about objectives or relationships. And
Anna, what that was, you said it gets cooked in a fire pit,
yes,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You're submerging the can in fire essentially for,
Okay.
for 1 hour. Um, when you take it out, it cools pretty fast. So you could also try like, if you have a really hot fire, it's been burning for a while, there's a lot of coal, a lot of embers in there. You might not need to have it in for the full 1 hour. And on the flip side, if you take it out too soon and it's not fully cooked, you'll notice that there is almost still like hardened wood parts. Sometimes you can get a really nice black brown actually with that. But you can always just throw it back in the fire for a bit. But if it's your first time, I would say take it out a little bit before an hour just to check on it. And then you can always throw it back in and just see how it's doing. Yeah. So objectives, relationships, and alliances. So coming back to this graph that we looked at in our first class, I believe. So the invitation here is to consider how is your practice embedded in your relationship to self, community, society, and environment. And it's not to say that like, a sustainable practice has to be in dialogue with all of these at the same time. We might flow back and forth between these in different ways in our lives, right? So, establishing your needs. Um, Sorry, my animals are making a lot of sound downstairs. I hope you don't hear it. So what are your needs in your work or your community? What are the needs of your work environment or the community you work with? What sustainability issues do you identify in your community or work environment? Now, one of the two exercises, I only have a few slides to go through here, they're all essentially prompts to sort of get us thinking about our practice and maybe even our project, right? But one of the two exercises I have after this involves, and you guys are going to choose what we do, but one of them is a free write where we're really just collectively free writing responses to these questions, right? So we'll sort of circle back to these questions. Defining your own goals. So what are your personal sustainability goals? And in assessing this, you might ask yourself, what are your core values? What do you stand for? What does your work stand for? Why is it important to work towards sustainability in your practice or in your community? What barriers do you face in trying to do so? And then thinking strategically about ways that you can achieve these goals. I want to lift up this concept of interbeing, which is a term coined by Thich Nhat Hanh, which refers to the interconnectedness of all things, connected to life through our actions, feelings, thoughts, and everything else. So, how are these goals that you have part of a larger network, right? Whether it's on a community level, a society level, or an ecosystem level. Who, what, and where does your practice engage human and non-human entities? Are there entities, people, or ideas that you can engage to foster interbeing intentionally in your practice? And I wanted to briefly speak to the complexity of being, like, for example, and I briefly was, Nina brought this up, but like being in a cultural context where like say you like immigrated to the United States for like school, for example, and you come from a different culture, a different context. How do you both like I guess the something I would invite you to consider is like how do you like part of your community, right, is probably deeply going to come from, like where you came from, like your culture, your community back at home. How do you like stay close to those cultural truths that are like probably deeply embedded in your body, your heart, and like your community, your people, while also um like entangling yourself on a local scale, like where you physically are, right? And I'm thinking about I had two very close friends in my MFA program who were women from Iran, and Yasemin and Layla, and they both like struggle with how to honor the struggles of their people, particularly women in Iran, in their work, in their program, and make it culturally relevant and connective to people who were in the wider program in school. And one of the ways that they did that was that they assessed like, okay, what are the struggles that women are facing there, and like what are the struggles that women are facing here, and how do I like create a bridge between those two things, and like create a project that is like speaking to both of those contexts. So yeah, I just wanted to say that like, these can be really complex questions to sit with, and they can take time to develop and navigate like, and I think of the term wayfinding, like we are carving new pathways in culture, right? And that's like a process that is not for the not for the faint of heart in a way. We are, you are wayfinders. Navigating sustainability and like community health and well-being in a culture that is in many ways sort of unconsciously or consciously designed to where to I don't want to go so far as to say like to exploit us really, and like not really be mindful of these things. So be kind to yourselves in this process. It is a process of wayfinding, and a lot of it, as Adrienne Marie Brown says, a lot of relationship building moves at the speed of trust, right? So it also invite you guys to be really like flexible in your process, and like be really open to ways that relationships that you develop or things that you learn about your ecosystem might alter the route, right? And because that's like being responsive, right? Sorry, I'm just taking a look at the chat. Exactly, building a bridge across resistance. Yes. And Jessica, I have not tried a wood stove for making charcoal, but I would guess that that would work fine. Yeah. Um, cool. And Colette, okay, I will, and Colette, I'll look for your email. Okay.
Oh, that was for the other Anna.
Oh, okay,
That's
okay.
my
Thank
partner,
you.
Anna. Sorry.
Okay, cool.
But
Great.
I do have one more charcoal question.
Yeah, yeah. Let's hear
So
it.
this may seem like a stupid question,
Hmm.
but how do I
Nothing
know
stupid.
if my can is tin? Like, because I was thinking about like the cans that vegetables come in that used to be tin, but now they're like steel. Like, so
That's
does the metal matter?
yeah, no, thank you. That's a really good question. And I'm sorry to say I don't have an answer for how you would distinguish between tin and other types of metals. Um, yeah, that's a good question. I know tin cans, yeah, I often the tin cans that I've found them in like almost like thrift antique stores. They're like sort of a little bit of an older generation thing. Sometimes like food comes in them and I'll like save it from something I bought. Um, I'm I'd have a hard time believing that other metals would not be fine to use. I feel like other metals would be fine, but I'm really glad you asked this question, because something really important that I forgot to bring up is that a lot of old tin cans, and some new too, have like a um enamel or acrylic like coating on the outside, like a paint like that's signs and signal like advertising or whatever, or even just a design. And it's really important that you the first time you fire your can, and you can reuse your cans ad nauseum. So I've recommended getting a can, that's the can you stick with. But the first time you fire it, you do not want to be breathing in those fumes. Like that's something you probably don't want to do indoors in a stove. I just would be worried that the enamel burn off might stick around the inside of your stove. So like I wouldn't burn that for the first time inside. Um, but after firing once or twice, like that all burns off and you're kind of really just down to the metal. Um, yeah, I'm glad that you asked. Oh, Megan said you can distinguish a tin can, often steel with a tin coating, from an aluminum can using a magnet because tin plated steel is magnetic while aluminum is not. Awesome. Thank you, Megan. I need to write that down. If a magnet sticks to the can, it is likely made of a magnetic steel with a tin coating. Okay, cool. I'm going to save this chat. Um, okay, so local relationships, developing sustainable systems through partnerships. So, what relationships of mutual benefit can you create within your community? You might ask, what can you contribute? What might you be aiming to receive? Has anybody heard of asset mapping? So asset mapping is where you are mapping the assets within your community or like group village. So for example, and charting that in a public way. So like you all have sort of access to understanding this. So like so and so might have access to a wood shop, understand how to work with wood. So and so might have a background in lighting and photography. So and so might have a deep history understanding of the history of our area, right? Like there's just so finding your like the network and then developing a mutual aid network within your community. I had this artist who came in to talk once who does natural dyes, and she lives and works in New York City she teaches at FIT, and she had this relationship with a local deli where they just went through tons of avocados. So they had like a ton of avocado pits. She said, "Hey, I would love to use those for dyeing." And so she had a relationship with them where like she helped get rid of all their avocado pits and and she would use it for dyeing. And then she would go in and like show them what she made and just stuff like that. Um, but I'm also thinking about the potential for collaborators, right? Like there's so much there too. Um, and I remember our cultural sustainability chart, like thinking about the social, environmental, and economic sustainability of your environment, your people. Finding people with similar values, great collaborators. Becoming a cultural catalyst. I really love this term. So what are the cultural benefits of these relationships? How is the culture around you going to be impacted by these relationships? How can you create the conditions for this to happen? Are you going to set up an art show? Are you going to curate and plan for programming or gathering? Is there digital presence involved? The options are limitless. Uh, so I want to run through a couple of examples of some projects that folks have done in the past. This is Susan Snipes. She's a photographer. She had these beautiful projects. And she sort of umbrella, like called her project Neo Materials. And she went through some experiments. And it's important that you guys think about how you're documenting your research because we are presenting it. And I think it's not just for the ability to like being able to present it in this class. I think being able to document and share your work is a really important part of communicating it to your community, right? And like looping in collaborators and viewers, etc. So here are some examples of how Susan was making charcoal. Yeah, see that tin can? All the coloring on it, and then the burn off afterwards, right? And the first time you burn off, you'll see there's sort of this peeling metal, sometimes like this debris. So then she did these drawings with the charcoal. She made acorn ink, documented that process, marigold ink. Um, and then she did these paintings and drawings. She's also breaking down some rocks from the shore of Lake Erie to make pigments. We have these beautiful like post-industrial bricks too on the shore. So Nicole, she's in Brazil and she was working with a super remote community. And in their community, in this like small village of like 60 people, where they like, they build their own earth houses, like everything's kind of wildcrafted in its own way. She like worked with a woman who knew how to make medicine from teas and different berries, and they made a bunch of different pigments. And she was doing this community art like experience for this village. And in their context, it didn't make sense to hang art on walls. People don't do that there. So they did this, like, they made these pastels. So they did a like art parade where I thought I had a picture of them parading through this. So they did this art parade and then they all like ended the parade by like hanging them all on this tree. It's like working with your context. What makes sense in your context in terms of like art and community? Um, yeah, it's so cute. Andy Thrums is in California. She had somewhat recently experienced a very harrowing wildfire in their area. And she was collecting the burnt wood, the charcoal from the burnt wood, and making pigment from that as a way to process grief in the area. And she was doing that on her own, like in her own practice. But then also, I don't have pictures, but then she also did this community like art making session, which was so beautiful. And like the kids like were processing the grief too, even. It was really powerful. Beth was making her own pigments and charcoal, and she has a background in science and art, so she like created this art piece where she that helps explain the how soil like this essentially soil health and like what's going on with soil in terms of all the like beings and creatures that like come together to create like the really wild and rich ecosystem that soil is. Sound artist Linda O'Keefe. I love this concept that she talked about called sound foraging. So she was like documenting soundscapes of changing climate. Ani did this project called One of Many. This is something she had already in the works, but it was sort of a climate awareness participatory project where she has this sort of archetypal figure that she embodies and invites others to join in with her in this sort of march, an eco-social engagement art project, she called it. Uh, Marianne, and this is the last one I'll show you, and then I'll show you one example from my practice, then we'll go into something else. But Marianne has been running this project called Crisis Farm, where she's exploring like how critical our relationship is to growing food in community. And she like created this soil garden and and had like this community feast. And yeah, she had a much wider project that she built out from. Um, and I want to tell you about Susie's real quick. Yeah, this is just yeah, talk about like working with a storied material. So Susie was working with clay from the seabed of decommissioned oil wells. It just was a really potent material to be working with. Um, and I just thought it was such a cool example of how powerful how much our narrative can be pushed forward simply by the materials we're using, right? Um, okay, wait, I want to I want to get to our activity, so I'm going to go through this fast. So here's an example of something that I did when I was trying to uh, deepen in craft, because craft is a site where we are coming into relationship with the materials on a local level. Craft often involves like wild crafting or using materials from your local landscape, whether it's clay, fibers, wood. And craft is also transcultural and transtemporal. Like so many crafts are deeply embedded in all of human culture around the world, such as weaving, for example. And it's also a site that is often intergenerational and a collective intergenerational site where like knowledge is being passed down from elders to youth. And my collaborator and I did this project. I had never woven anything before. My mother weaves at a weaving studio, and I intentionally was like, I'm gonna learn out loud. I want to learn in community how to do this. So from the start, it was a collaboration. So I went to my mother's weaving studio, and I collaborated with Sham here, who is this master dyer, and I found all of these sheets from like my community. I was like, I just did a call, like, hey, does anybody have any sheets they don't want? And I also went to thrift stores, and Sham showed me how to dye the fibers, and um and then an old friend who has since passed away made these shuttles for the weaving, and my here's my collaborator Karan. She built the loom, and we've since had over 600 people weave on this loom in 5 different locations. And it's just like such a powerful, simple thing and I think there's like, and I think, stop me if I've said this before, but a mentor once said to me, community, uh, um in the or no sorry company in the center of the word company is pan, which means bread is the thing that brings company together. So in art, right, in community arts, the question is, what is the thing that's bringing people together? Is the art, right? Or maybe it's food, or what is it? So in my practice, I'm essentially asking that question. And so in this case, it's the loom. The loom is bringing the people together. But it's just an excuse to be together. You know what I mean? And like co-create. And by literally physically co-creating, we are demonstrating our agency to shape, to create, to shape the world rather than be shaped by the world. And similarly, I ran a storytelling collective. I think I mentioned this for like a year and a half, and we would just come together, and story was that thing in the center that we're gathering around, right? So it can be just as simple as bringing people together around a simple thing. Like you don't have to figure out how we be together necessarily. You just need to like set the stage for people to come together around something. I think we can sometimes like we had co-creation sessions too. Here's Layla and Yasemin, my friends from Iran. And we had co-creation sessions, but and dancers, performances. Here's the loom at a Earth Day event, and more recently in a gallery in Western Massachusetts. Okay, so I'm gonna pause there, and we're gonna take a group vote. We have two options of what we can do next in the last 20 minutes before Nicole joins us. So I have set up a free write here, which y'all can have access to. And this is something you can also do on your own, but sometimes I feel like people don't do it unless we do it together collectively. But here are the questions that we just sort of ran through. And the idea is we do a collective free write. So you'd write your name here and then your response here. And this is to help you settle into and bring to the surface, bring into your consciousness some floating ideas that you might have about your own needs, your community needs, what your project might look like. Option number two is to run through our Artivist slideshow to see what some folks contributed. So I'm going to stop the share and we're going to take a quick vote. Okay. So, who wants to do the free write? One, two, three, four, five, six. And who wants to do the Artivist slideshow?
Can I vote twice?
Nah. Okay.
I want to do both.
Oh, wait. Um, wow, we're kind of split. We're kind of split. What do we think? Colette, wait, where did you have your hand for?
Well, I've looked at the Artemis thing already, so I'd like to free write. But I mean, I don't know why people can't do what they want and have to do the Artivist and have to do the free write.
We could do that. We could do that. Yeah. My only concern about that would be that we would be distracting as we go through the slideshow for those who are writing, but you could mute us. So let's do that. I'm going to um I'm going to throw the link in the chat for the free write. And then for those who want, we'll stay on and go through the Artivist slideshow. Okay. Let me know if anybody has trouble accessing and editing that link. Okay. Okay, cool. I'm going to share my screen again. And if you have something in the slideshow and you were like, I want to do the free write because I'm sick and I don't have a voice right now, you can just stick with the free write. Maybe we'll like collectively look at what you did and try to assemble between ourselves who these artists are. And for those who are doing the free write, good luck. Feel free to mute us, throw some inspiring music on. Just come back here at 3 p.m. because that's when Nicole is going to join us for the talk. And feel free to turn your camera off to get in the zone.
Wait. Oh, 3 o'clock. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, sorry, some of you are in different time zones. That would be
Yeah.
20 minutes from now.
20 minutes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So here's our Art to Vis slideshow. Okay, so Susan Stipes was the example. Colette, are you here? Are you writing maybe?
I can talk about that real quickly if you want me to.
Sure, if you're up for it.
Yes. So, I just was introduced to Jez's work. I was at a recent sound art kind of residency in New Mexico, and somebody had he makes these special e acoustic microphones. And so if you go to his website, there are a lot of different things that you can listen to. So anyway, I've purchased one of these microphones, but I thought the work was really interesting. They come with little probes, so you can actually listen inside of plants and trees and moss and water.
Wow.
And the work, and I would also say that the work really encourages deep and slow listening, and so I find it very kind of meditative to sit and listen. And he and his daughter Phoebe also do these, they're called Mermations once a year, where they bring in different sound artists and they like a retreat style, and then you have like a week where you're immersed with the different artists, kind of all learning and working together.
Wow, that's really cool. I've heard of a similar type of microphone that somebody mentioned in another class, where you could listen to like underwater and I think even like rocks too. I forget. Yeah, that's really cool though. And the link is in the slideshow for anybody who wants to access it.
And then the other artist, who I don't know a lot about her work yet, but I'm really excited by what I've seen. I will be interviewing her for an article for Eco Art Space, which I believe was going to be published in December, if I kind of get my shit together in time. But she's a performance artist, And there quite a few of the performances are very not only site specific but very durational. And there's also I'm a big fan of kind of subversive humor, so many of the pieces also have like you can see the piece on the right where she is crawling with the olive tree. Um, Involve some subversive humor. So yeah, anybody who's interested in performance art, I think you would be interested. I consider this eco performance, kind of a subcategory of performance that is dealing with performance addressing environmental issues.
Could you tell us the story of this piece?
No, I
Okay,
cannot.
no worries, no worries.
I could 2 weeks ago when I
Yeah,
did
yeah,
it,
yeah.
and
No
now I'm
worries.
like, I don't want it, but you'll when you click, it's all right there, and you can. She has
Awesome.
text about each of the works. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just wanted to. I know I feel like a lot of artists who are working environmentally, like performance and sound, sometimes are kind of on the fringe. It's not necessarily recognized as part of a mainstream practice. And so I wanted to introduce kind of two um, artists that you might not know about and
So,
that are both international.
so cool. Wow. Yeah, it makes me want to, yeah, I'm like fascinated by performance art. And yeah, I want to pick your brain about a whole bunch of all those artists on the fringe. You should curate a class about eco performance art to run through Eco Art Space.
So I have proposed to Patricia for next year. I don't want to be the sole presenter. I said like we need to have a few, but apparently Eco Art Space has a number of performance art members. And
Yeah.
so doing a performance art residency slash retreat where there would be opportunities for both like led exercises, guided exercises, but also time to work on, individual stuff. We talked, it might be in New Mexico, but she threw out Joshua Tree as a possible option. So stay tuned, everybody, because hopefully that's coming.
Colette, that's really cool. I mean, something that you could even consider for your project if you don't already have something in mind is um is designing that, organizing that, and then also pitching like your presentation if there's other Eco Art Space members who do join us. It'll also be a way to like begin to
Forever them,
share
yeah.
about it and receive feedback. Certainly no pressure, it's just an idea. But yeah, that's exciting.
Thank you. And then I'm also leading the Eco Art Space Literature as Resistance book club for 2026, and I have chosen the three books, and so I think that's getting launched soon by the end of the year. So stay tuned for
Awesome.
that. I would love to have everybody part of it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Devin, are you writing?
I just stopped.
Awesome. Are you up for sharing?
Yes, absolutely. So the artist that I included in this slideshow is Mary Mattingly. She is like my number one art hero. And what I love about what she's doing is she's creating work that is real action. And I'm obsessed with her water clocks. And she is just she's really interested in creating something that feeds us in the future. And she's also really interested in cleaning water, which as far as climate change goes, I feel like these are like the top concerning questions. And so I just love that she is a contemporary artist who's bringing these works that are clearly outside of gallery walls and really connecting to the public in a different way. And that's what I'm about.
Devin, if you had taken this class in the spring, you would have been in the class with Mary Mattingly.
Dang.
Like the class.
I got to meet Mary this spring. I think it was March. I was visiting New York and I decided to reach out to her. So I actually did get to meet her in this ring anyway, so it was awesome. But yeah, she's just a really amazing person, and I just really love what she's doing.
For her project, she was thinking through community engaged practices that could happen on the floating food forest. So like growing herbs, doing like cooking classes or dye workshops. It was really cool. It's an honor to work with her.
Yes, it is. And I just love a lot of her work is being shown like outdoors and on the floating food forest, and it's just a whole different way of being with the art.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's such a generous person too, just as a human being. She just has a really kind presence. Um, awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
And Eve, I think, is voiceless and perhaps even writing. Let me check the chat because I can go through these. Um, in my own practice, the tarpon is fair by how she should from being tarp. Yes, I'm okay, so Eve is sick and voiceless, but um lives in Beacon and uh this installation is so wonderful and refreshing. She might be talking about Mary Mattingly. I was so sad, Eve, that I did not get to see this show at Dia. I was on my radar for Meg Webster. Oh, okay, okay. For Meg Webster, this installation was so wonderful and refreshing. Yeah. Meg had this show at Dia, um, I think in the spring, late fall of last year. And let me see if there's another slide of her work. Oh no, Anna Mendieta. Uh, Meg, I think is from California. She is a land artist. I don't know a lot about her practice, but seeing some of her work made me really sad that I missed this show. Um, yeah, like I mean, this is such a powerful installation too. I think she also had this like wall, this tall wall that almost looked like a Richard Serra piece, but it was made out of beeswax in that show. It's still there. Oh my gosh. Okay, great to know.
I can try to talk, but you can hear my husky,
That's
sexy
okay
voice.
as long as
Yes.
you're not hurting
She's
your.
yeah, no, it's an amazing show. I really didn't know much about her work, but if you guys are interested, that article from Cultured Magazine was very interesting to read because she does frame her work in relationship to climate, which I found pretty interesting. But yeah, the show, as far as I know, is up for quite a while, and it's very refreshing as a opposite to Sarah downstairs with his massive, pieces. And you're right, the beeswax sculpture is a similar shape. So I feel like it might even be somewhat of a conscious
Huh.
shape choice. Yeah, but she also has moss and salt. But I'm about to cough. Goodbye.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Eve. Ana Mendieta, oh, love so much. Cuban artist, and it's still there. She has a huge sculpture. Meg Webster, yeah. Ana Mendieta is a Cuban land artist who um does like embodied earth works that are I get the sense stemming really from her like embodied experience in a woman's body and like a lot of her her works are like what we see in these pictures are the sort of aftermath of like a ritual that took place or like an intentionally cultivated encounter between the body and the land. And yeah, a really powerful artist. Highly recommend looking up if you if not familiar with her. And Eve said the Tate Modern in London is opening a huge retrospective in 2026. Whoa, we need to. I'm really trying not to fly these days, but that is very tempting. Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for her practice. Okay. Hi, Nicole. Welcome. We're wrapping
Hi.
up looking at this Artivist slideshow that um, people have shared some eco artists that they know about. Let me see if Iona is here. Iona, do you want to share?
Hey, yeah, it's Joanna.
Joanna,
Yeah,
sorry, Joanna.
that's okay. Yeah, I can share a bit about this is Amélie Brindamour. She's a Québécois artist, and if I'm lucky, she might be my mentor. She works a lot with kind of yeah. That's I think that's why it's relatable to me because she's really experimenting with different new materials, just like bioplastics, mycelium, a lot of mycelium. And this exhibition is called Raccommoder les récits, which means mending the stories. And it's about mending different materials together. So she'll have bioplastics, but then she'll have 3D printed pieces and just different materials that she kind of tries to assemble together. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I did have some notes. Maybe there was more too that I'm forgetting. Um, oh yeah, so it was a reflection on what's damaged in the physical realm or the environmental realm, and how we can mend what is damaged.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then the next artist is Amy Young's. I think this is just such a complete piece. I love it so much. It's basically a table that invites um, the observer to sit down and have a meal in the company of earthworms, which will in turn digest the remnants of the meal. So you eat at this table. You have a screen on the table where you can see the earthworms inside that kind of bag that's under there, which is a compost bag. And then you can have your meal while spending time with earthworms. And then at the end, at the center of the table, you put your leftovers in the compost, and then there's the worms, and then underneath the compost that's composted, you can put it in the potted plants. So it's a really beautiful circular system.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah. And also just like an interspecies
Hmm.
moment where you share a meal with another species, especially an invertebrate species, which are, I feel, the most undervalued animals.
Hmm. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Have you read Donna Haraway's Making Kin in the Cthulhu Scene?
No,
I think you might like that book.
making kin.
In the Cthulhu Scene.
Oh yeah, I heard about it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
She talks a lot about interspecies relationality.
Yeah, I have her book that's more about dogs and pets, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's on my list. It's the endless list.
Wonderful. Oh, and I'll put that title in the chat, Jessica. Yeah. Um, oh wait, one
Yeah,
second.
I'm here. Sorry.
Yeah.
Um, so this is Killjoy. It's her street artist name, though. I don't think she's ever really shared her birth name, and she's always kind of masked like this, so I don't think anyone's ever really seen her full face either. Um, but she's a Filipino street artist that's based in Houston, Texas. And a lot of her practice is like large scale public art, it's kind of rooted in environmental and social justice um, issues. And she draws a lot from world mythology and ancient symbolism. And I think most of my early practice with community arts was with murals. And I've just been really attracted to her work over the years. And she's now working in puppetry collectives. She has like a group called Kitchen Table Puppetry Collective, and I think her most recent thing was kind of traveling around border towns, and she had this giant 10-foot puppet um, that
Yes.
she would kind of build the theater pieces with the community members of the border towns and do these traveling performances. Um, and since I've kind of relocated to the Hudson Valley, there's a lot of puppet troops around here, and I've been really interested um, in that work and how to do that with students and stuff. So she's just been a person I've been really attracted to. Um, and
Did you
yeah,
say you're in the Hudson Valley?
yeah, I'm in Kingston, New York.
Have you considered Bread Puppet Theater?
Yeah, and they've come. I've seen their shows. They've traveled through here.
I've heard
Um,
mixed results about their apprenticeship for what it's worth.
well, they're not as close because they're
Yeah,
they're
they're up
they're in
in
Vermont, but we've
yeah,
got some smaller troops, um,
cool.
and they're really great. And there's a lot of environmental um, puppetry groups that travel around, especially during the summer times, and work with students. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Killjoy's amazing, rock star.
Yeah, and then a lot of printmaking, which is also like just such an
Yeah.
accessible art tool. And then just quickly, this is like a documentary that I usually show to students when I'm talking about community arts. Um, if you don't know, Vic Muniz is like he's I guess a pretty internationally renowned conceptual artist, but this is a film from the 90s. I think he traveled back to his homeland in Brazil, and he went to the world's largest landfill, um, and was meeting the garbage collectors that worked in this landfill. And as he got to know them, I think his initial project was he would paint their portraits from the trash. But then as he got to interviewing them, he involved them in the portrait process, and each person that he chose was out picking the trash that they wanted to use for their portrait. They did everything from photograph to help him with the install. These are like massive um, portraits that he then photographed, and then I think he took them back to London for a show, and all the money that was auctioned or something went back to this community. But it just was like an interesting story of how the whole experience evolved, and how he ended up working with the members rather than just going using them as the subjects and um, doing it that way. It's just like a really beautiful story.
Did I tell you about my friend's art illusion project?
Oh no, I don't
Okay, I'm
think
gonna
so.
throw that in the chat. My best friend from undergrad was getting his um he created this project called Art Illusion with his partner Joel. He works with Vic Muniz. Uh, they like collaborate often, but Art Illusion is uh an organization that does community-based murals in areas of crisis all around the world. And so they have like a method where they'll like train a local artist on the ground, and then they'll sort of like uh, do ongoing community-based art practices. So in like refugee camps, like all kinds of stuff. And if you ever want to talk to my friend Max, I'd be happy to connect you to like I could also share my because I've co-facilitated murals with him, and I know his process of doing that with the community, which I'd be happy to like chat about if you ever want to talk
Oh,
about it.
thanks.
But you probably could school me. I mean, I'm sure you know way more than I do about facilitating community murals. Yeah, it's a really powerful form of community art practice. I think it's like so incredible when sorry, I'm gonna go on a super minor tangent, and then and then Nicole will come in, but because I don't want to bite away Nicole's time, but just to say that like from my experience, community murals and collective art practices can be so powerful because you are like most people, and especially in like Western context where there's like artists who are like the professional artists, and then everybody else is not an artist. And so I think one of the hardest things in doing community arts is getting people to feel open and comfortable to create, and like welcoming them in, and just being like putting a paintbrush in their hand and being like, go for it, you know? And when they start to get into it, there's this, I've seen just time and time again, this really powerful shift that happens where they're just like playing and having fun, but they're also like exercising their agency to create. And they just like, there's this huge shift happens. And like Max is constantly working with very intensely traumatized people, but there's like this deep sense of joy that is always so at the foreground of all of the projects that he does with these kids and with communities, because they're like centered around this, like the power of creating collectively. So yeah, it's just like a really powerful practice for like community vision. And like he always has like the community like does this, like they all sort of sit around, they all have like their own paper at first, all the kids, and then he like runs around, plays his like this instrument that he always plays. Like everybody does a dream vision where they're like, and he asks these central questions like, what do you want for the future of your community, and like what do, oh, I forget what the second question is, but they're like visioning questions. And then he puts all of their drawings on a wall so everybody's looking at them. And then they have a collective dialogue around like, what is our mural going to be? How do we translate these ideas into a mural? And then Max or the facilitator would be like, just, you know, sketch drawing, like what is the mural going to look like? And then we'll have a blueprint. But yeah, that's basically his process. But um can we take a 2 minute break before visiting artists? Yes. Nicole, is that okay? I mean, you know, if you got to do what you got to do, but
Yeah,
uh,
that's good because we can like set it up too.
great, great. Yeah. So, sorry to throw a lot at you in the last second. Not a very graceful transition, but let's take a couple of minutes, and Nicole and I are going to set up the presentation, and we'll begin, yeah, in a couple of minutes.
Awesome. Thanks.
Nicole, so I do have your slideshow. Do you want to try to share screen and see if that works? Or I'm happy to just share.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, Sorry, I thought I had it opened and it seems to have disappeared.
Oh, you're fine. Take your time.
uh, Oops. So sharing my screen. So do you have to make me the
I think that multiple participants can share right now, so you should have
okay.
access.
Okay, so it's share my entire screen, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So let's
I love.
close things and
Now, do
yeah.
you want to try and share it? We'll see if the um see if it works like blowing it up, because sometimes it won't go into full screen. It will keep your it will
Oh,
it will show us your presenter mode, if that makes sense.
oh, okay. So I did share, so you can see my screen now, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, you can't see my video. There
I
we
I can see your screen.
Okay. But I hadn't shared my video, so uh I'm in there now. My head is in there.
Oh,
Can you
I
see
see your
me?
head.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so shall we just try presenter view?
So the thing is now what I see, I'm gonna send you a screenshot.
You can see everything?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can
Okay.
see your notes and everything.
Yeah, okay. So what do I need to do?
So I'm actually not familiar because I don't use PowerPoint. But one thing we could do, wait, let me see, presenter view, play from current slide.
So let's try play for, oh, but I don't see my notes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So maybe one thing we could do is I could share the slideshow and you could have your notes on your computer.
And I would get you to just change
Yeah.
the slides.
Yeah. How does that feel for
Okay.
you?
Um,
Otherwise, worst comes to worst, you can also just share it with your in your presenter view. But it's not ideal.
yeah, I have my notes actually on paper. It just means I am more likely to read them. It's a little bit more awkward, but
That's
um,
okay. We welcome the awkward.
you can be awkward. Okay,
Always.
good. Um, so yeah, this is play from start, but that's going to start playing, right? Oh no, it's not moving.
I usually it's like if you
And
hit next, it will go to the next slide.
oh, that's a presenter view. We don't want that. And play from current slide. And if I hit the next slide, yes.
Okay, great. So does that work for you?
Yeah, I'll just read my notes.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Um, yeah, there's just more shuffling. Yeah, I haven't quite figured it out. Anyways, I've had Zoom problems lately, so
No worries, no worries.
okay.
We
And
will, I think is everybody back? I think we're gonna start. Okay. I think you can go for it, Nicole. We're very
okay.
excited to have you.
Well, thanks. Let's see. I'll put you there so I'm reminded that I'm actually talking to people. So, hello everyone. My name is Nicole Dextras, and I'm located in Vancouver, BC, Canada, which is on the unceded land of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Thank you, Anna, for inviting me to share some of my work that relates to community and space. And I'm also honored to be part of this gang of eco-friendly artists. So it's really nice for me to be able to meet you guys all and see. I wish actually I had watched all of the work that you guys were talking about because it seemed really interesting. So, oops. We got to move the slide. Now the slide's not moving. Okay, maybe I have to use this. There we go. Okay. So my talk today is going to be exploring the aspect of community from several angles. So one of them is finding community in the arts. The other one is creating community through art projects. And I'm also going to throw in to this whole thing some of the skills for navigating community changes that I've learned over the years of doing projects. So I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself. There we go. So my background, I was born in a small town in actually Ontario. So hello to the two Canadians that are here. And the small town is divided between the French and the English. And I'm not going to go into the whole like long history of Canada and the settlers and all that. Suffice to say that basically, if you think of the animosity between the French and the Brits in Europe, that whole thing was transferred to Canada when they settled Canada. So there's always been the sort of division. They actually call it the two solitudes in Canada, the French and the English. So suffice to say also that I was born right on the border of that. So, talking about community is an important aspect of my past and also my current practice as an artist. So, I also grew up in my mother's clothing store. So, that's the photo on the right. That's Carmen's Dress Shop from the 1950s. And I grew up playing and, yeah, having a lot of fun in the store. um, so one of the interests that I had as a child was well, I was artistic, but there was no art classes or anything like that in my town. There was nothing, really nothing but sports. So I learned to communicate and to navigate community at a very early age. So one of the things that I would do that was creative for me was I would put on skits with my friends and make costumes, and that that was the thing I just kind of invented for myself. And it was the kind of thing that was permissible also in the school. I went to school with nuns, so it was quite restrictive. Um, so this whole idea of theatricality was sort of part of my childhood. And I didn't really think about it till much later as an artist that that was still part of me and something that I loved expressing. And also being in my mother's store, it gave me this sort of early insight into textiles, let's say. There's many things that happened in my life that drew me to that, but just being in the store and being with my mother, who was very involved in that, was like this first sort of instinctual thing that I had. So what I did was I eventually moved to British Columbia in the early 80s. So here I started to gain some perspective on my identity, this sort of push and pull of these two communities. And I found a French community here, which I really loved. And then I graduated from the Emily Carr School of Art back in 1986. And then I began to freelance as a costume designer. So my work at the time, once I graduated from school, I was really into papermaking. This was one of the early pieces that I did. And this one is called La Reine du Carnaval, which is the Carnival Queen. And it takes images that I took photographs of these statues in the cemetery in my hometown. And out of handmade paper, which I dyed and then made these collages with. They're quite large, by the way. They're like life size. I ended up putting these gowns on them, which make them look like, you know, talent show contestants. So the winner, of course, is the Virgin Mary on the side, and the two on the side are I mean, she's in the middle, and on the side, they're the runner-ups. So one of the skills that I learned was, you know, art school really helped me, and taking workshops and stuff like that were a great way to develop a personal community in the arts, whereas I never came from one, so I didn't have one. Since my artwork then revolved around papermaking, but I was also interested in ecology and you know, environmental issues and things like that. And I didn't know how to incorporate that into my art. At the time, it was, you know, the days of land art. I don't know if you guys have covered land art, but it was predominantly male and monumental. So think of the spiral jetty as one of it's the standout piece from that whole movement. But of course, it took bulldozers and lots of men to create this piece. So I wanted to find something that I was my own sort of personal take on things, which was a more intimate notion of ephemerality as a link that connects our bodies to the natural world. So in 2005, I had a breakthrough, and it happened during this freak cold snowstorm that we had in Vancouver, which was, you know, unheard of back then. Everybody was stuck in their house for 2 weeks because the entire city shut down. Like, Vancouver had never seen this kind of snow before, and we didn't have snow plows. Nobody had a shovel. Nobody had warm clothes. And at the time, I mean, I'm from the East, so I'm comfortable with the cold, but I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool to just kind of freeze something and photograph it? And that's when I fell in love. And this is one of the first pieces that I ever made. It's a skirt that I took outside and I sprayed with water. And then I righted it up, and the light started shining through it. And that's when I truly fell in love with this process. So this brings me to some of my later work with ice. So I really love this whole idea of ice as a way to speak to ephemerality, because it physically is ephemeral and everybody knows this. So when you look at something that's been frozen, you know intuitively that it's going to melt. You know that it's not going to last. So that's a great way, for me anyways, to talk about the environment, because we need to realize this about our place in the world. And like this sculpture was done at the Banff Center for the Arts. So ironically, in Vancouver, I cannot make these sculptures because it doesn't get cold enough. Every once in a while it gets cold, just like a little bit, and I run outside and I make something. But to make something quite large, I need colder temperatures. So this was at the Banff Center, and this piece is basically like on the right. You see this dress that was covered in icicles and ice. And so everything in the larger piece is one of those, and they're all sort of stuck together. And the piece itself, it pretty much melted after a couple of days. So one of the things that I have learned in doing this practice, in working with nature in a sense, is that to not be too attached to the outcome, because that's exactly what this practice is going to show you, is that things are ephemeral and you can't always control them. But I put a little caveat in there because that's very Zen, we can't always be super Zen. But I say, bring your camera. Make sure your camera is ready and there, because you never know what's going to happen. And I have had things happen where things disappear right away, and I wasn't ready. So that's one of the things anyways. So I had found my passion, basically doing this kind of work was my passion, but I still hadn't found a community for my art practice, and I longed for a place to belong. And this photo is from an unsanctioned project I did in 2007 called Belonging sous le pont, which means belonging under a bridge. And at the time, I was discouraged by the lack of spaces to do ephemeral installations. And so one day I just quietly decided to just make stuff. I decided to go under the bridge. And this is a little willow structure that I made and photographed down there. And so to my surprise, this neglected urban site was randomly occupied by homeless people, skaters, horn players, dog walkers, the kind of people that end up under a bridge. It was an ideal place for me to actually find community. So these are this is another piece that I did under the bridge. And I have to say that part of the reason why I could do this project was because the city was on strike. So the city workers, the people who do the garbage and, pick up the garbage and erase all the graffiti, because there's tons of graffiti underneath the bridge, they were all on strike. So I just continued all summer. I just kept making things and going there every day. I was meeting people, talking to them about the history of the site. And because, I didn't have a permit to be on this public land. So that's another thing about community, is you have to understand that a lot of the land that we see, we think is, I can do stuff there because you think it's public, but it's not. It's actually private land. Somebody owns it. And if it belongs to a city, then you have to get a permit to be there. So anyways, I ended up, like I said, staying there all summer. Somebody had left a couch down there, so I planted it with these shade plants, because of course we're under a bridge. And I had to water them. There was a guerrilla gardener close by who had access to water, so I could water the plants. But eventually what happened at the end of the summer was that the city strike ended, and then everything disappeared. So again, that whole practice of non-attachment. But I did have a good run during the summer, and it was also it was a good eye-opener for me to see that I was really comfortable in this space. I was comfortable with just talking to ordinary people all the time, and just talking to them about, whatever they wanted to talk about. Usually they were curious, and so I talked to them about different things. And I found this slide, of this poster that I made, and actually I think it was kind of cheeky of me to do this because, of course, I didn't have a permit. But the poster says, ephemeral art installations relating to the complex history of this site, from the original natives who inhabited it to the coming of the Canadian Pacific Railroad and the clearing of the giant Douglas firs that grew here. So, and the other skill that I learned there was, if you can't find a space to show your art, you have to create one. So I realized that that's one of the things you have to do if you wait for other people to, invite you to shows and whatnot. We're sort of on the margins here. This is a new phenomenon, this idea of environmental art, and it's not that established. There aren't going to be that many opportunities. So this is one that I did, that I was invited to. Sorry, I got to change my pages here. And this one's called the Little Green Dress Project. And this was done at the Van Dusen Botanical Gardens in Vancouver. And what I did was I created 21 dresses throughout basically a couple of months. I was on site and I interacted with the public on a daily basis. So I had learned that I really loved that. And when it came to this project, I decided, well, here's like a place where I have permission to do this, and I want to be there. I want to continue this thing of meeting the public. So the 21 dresses were, whoops, sorry. I don't know what happened there. The 21 dresses were I made about 4 or 5, one every 4 or 5 days. And the plants I got from my friends, people that I knew. And because it's really hard to get plants from a botanical garden, they're very attached to their plants. You can't really just pick things. So that involved my community. And like I said, I made one every few days. And if you look at the back row, those are the oldest ones. And the one at the front is actually the freshest one because it's made out of crab apples. Also, it's very red. But they're all in sort of different stages of decomposition, and that was part of the beauty of this project, was that I had this opportunity to show these pieces over time, so the public could also see them over time. So the concept of ephemerality was sort of supported by this idea that I had the space to do this, and people would come to the garden at various times, and they'd see them kind of progress. So this is what they look like after several months in the rain. Also, my approach is very non-preachy. I'm more into just meeting people and chatting with them and whatever their interests are. If I see that they're, it kind of changes on its own if I talk too long. Okay, so it's playing. So this is a dissolve of one of the dresses, and I wanted to show that because that's one of the things that people could see. Maybe I'll play it again. I don't know if it will. Yeah, there we go. It went to the next slide though. Sorry about that. So, in talking to people, it's sort of a great way to get out of the gallery sort of milieu, and also a way to sort of slowly kind of meet people where they're at. So in this project, I had some people who sort of understood the concept and some who didn't. So I have one experience where a woman came up to me. She's like running and she's going, "Oh my God, this is so fabulous. I want one of these. Can I buy one of these to put it in my garden?" And I had to say to her, "Well, it's made out of plants. Like, these are real plants. They're gonna rot." Like, there's no point in buying this. You can't really own it because it's just something that's going to become compost eventually. So that was an interesting experience for me because I could see that she was struggling with this idea. And I thought, well, this is good. This is good. This is what I want to talk about, ephemerality. You just have to sort of find a way to be able to communicate that. So, oops, change page again. So this is the Urban Foragers, the House of Eco Drifters. Now, this project, it started actually quite a while before I actually showed this, because I did each one individually and they kept changing over time. But this is at the Begovich Gallery in Fullerton at California State University in Fullerton. And it was my chance to actually show all three of them. So I'll tell you a little bit about them. The show was called Ego. Oh, go back. Ego Echo, and it speaks to the idea of community, food security, and self-sustainability. Each skirt is based on a nomadic architectural system. So the mobile garden dress is based on a dome. The nomadic harvest dress is based on a yurt, and the traveling seed bomb dress is based on a cone teepee shape. The concept is that they're a community, and together they have the ingredients to make a complete meal. So let's see if I can play the video. Yeah. So the idea for these pieces came to me during the Occupy movement. And what I saw in the Occupy movement was that these encampments that were happening all over in different cities, we had one in Vancouver, they kept being moved around by the cops and security and stuff like that, because they wanted them to disband. And I thought, whoa, well, wait a minute. What if you had oops, got to go back. If you had your tent for your encampment was actually on wheels and you could move around with it. So that way you were free to create your own and occupy your own movement. Oh, this is playing it again. Sorry. There we go. So the way that I see these, I place them in a dystopian future, but really that could be anytime very soon. They can move around the city and they can forage for food. So I wanted to create three of them because I wanted to show them as a community, and each one specializes in a special type of food. So the mobile garden dress makes a salad from her veggies. The nomadic harvest dress makes a soup from her foraged foods, and the traveling seed bomb dress makes protein balls from nuts and seeds. So I've presented these in various situations over time, and a big part is sharing food with the public. So I'll go through them, each one of them a little bit to give you an idea. They're quite complex. So this is the first one that I made. It's called the mobile garden dress. It has 40 or so pots of fresh plants. So those plants are actually in soil in the little pots. And here you see her, I don't know if you can see it, but she's holding a little watering can in her hand. It's black, so it's hard to see. But that was part of the performance, is she would ask people to water her plants. So, basic tenet for the performance was always to just find a way to engage the public, and then you could, whoever wants to can engage in a conversation and take it wherever you want. So this one has had many iterations and has been shown in a variety of spaces. And I've been fortunate enough sometimes to collaborate with gardeners also. So it's not just an art gallery or an art space or something like that. Then we are connected with maybe the agriculture department of the university, like we did in Begovich, and at Begovich, I mean. And so here also is creating a community between the arts and the agriculture. So that's kind of important to me. One of the other iterations of it was at the Jardin Botanique de Montréal. And here we're seeing, this is actually my friend G. G is an actor and a dancer, and she wore this. She was very keen to do it, and so I have people wear them. I don't wear them myself, and I find that the actor is free to improvise and bring whatever they want to the character. So one of the things that G did as soon as she was in the costume is she started tasting some of the plants, which I thought was a little crazy, but she did that, and then she thought, oh, I'll get other people to taste the plants. And one of the plants that we had was a stevia plant, and that was a big hit with kids and people because people had no idea that you can actually eat stevia leaves, excuse me, and they're sweet. They're just naturally sweet. So, I do encourage the actors, and it's also been that I get to work with other people and collaborate with them. So one of the other things that I do often, if I can, is if I've been like hired to do an event, like this one at the Jardin Botanique, I ask them if I can have the piece for an extra day. And then I decide to do some kind of random performance or something on the street. And in this one, G and I decided to go. This was a student protests in 2012. They were called Les Casseroles. The students were all protesting in the city of Montreal, all over Quebec, actually. And anyways, they would go out at night and bang pots. Every night there was a parade. Everybody was out on the street banging pots. It was quite amazing. So we went to this. We decided to bring flowers and hand out flowers to people. And to me, that was just a kind of nod to some of these earlier demonstrations like this one. Of course, it's a very famous image of a student putting a flower in the gun of a soldier. I guess those were soldiers. So again, one of the things that I learned as a skill was to build a community with your colleagues and friends. This is another iteration of the mobile garden dress. And this is my favorite one because I got to do an art residency in a shopping mall for a month, which is, an amazing kind of experience. And so we had the mobile garden dress in the mall walking around, and she'd talk to people about plants, and then she'd kind of see the fruit vendors or whatever, and she'd say, oh my God, why do you have everything in packaging and all this kind of stuff? So she would really improvise. But what that was amazing about this is we were sort of followed by a gaggle of kids, like this kind of mall rats, because their parents work in the mall. And we made a salad. So the kids helped make the salad. We had water to wash them all, and then they chopped everything up. We made a salad. We sat around it right in the middle of the mall and ate the salad. And then we offered the salad to people in the mall, which is so much fun and a great experience. And something that I think might be difficult to do these days after COVID. People are kind of standoffish. But anyways, I also want to talk a little bit about the design. So the design of this is kept purposely simple so that people could replicate it. Each one of the dresses that I've made, they're on a wooden kind of platform that has wheels. And so the whole structure is on there. And in this one, you kind of see in this photo, she's taken the round structure apart because it comes apart into 4 sections. And she sort of uses that as a little platform to pile all of her pots and all of her stuff, basically. And the idea for me was that she could hop on a subway station. She could travel with this. I mean, it's on wheels, she can walk around, but if she had to go a longer distance, she could actually carry this. And I imagine them living in community gardens. And this one's kind of special because the tent is covered in this sort of chartreuse fabric that I dyed, and she's wearing it as a strapless dress. So it's another way to sort of incorporate the things that are in the dress itself. So the second one is called the Nomadic Harvest Dress, and this is at the McMichael Gallery, which is basically in Northern Ontario. And it's situated in a park. So I did a residency there, and I got to build the piece there while I was doing the residency, and we also had the piece for the opening of the exhibition. Oops, I'm on the wrong page. Let's see. So I was fortunate to work with a steward of the park who knew all of the plants, like the native plants there. And so he told me a lot about the plants. He told me how to find them. And one of his students was actually working at the gallery, and she volunteered to be the character. And that was great because she knew all the plants really, really well. And part of this one, when I created this one, I wanted them to have tags. So the tags are, they identify the plant. They also give the common name, the botanical name, the uses of it as a food, as medicine, and also any kind of fun trivia about the plant. So, oops, I'm not going forward. Why is that? Okay. So this one, the Nomadic Harvest Dress, is actually based on a yurt. And I got to experience yurts firsthand during an art residency in Mongolia. And this is a photo of the yurt that we stayed in. And on the right is the photo of the piece when I was creating it at the McMichael Gallery. So you sort of see this idea of these cross pieces and then the circular pieces that go around. So the other thing that I have found over time is that art residencies for me have been a great way to form community, to meet more people, and to have time and space to create things that maybe wouldn't necessarily fit in a gallery. So this one is, this little sketch shows how the structure is made. So you see that sort of crisscrossy kind of pattern. Those are those sort of, based on those, you see gates that close and expand. Well, that's how yurts are made. They actually have these things. They're all in sections. And if you put several sections together, they'll form a circle. And the beauty of the design is that at the top, the very top of these, these kind of accordion shape, there's a V. And the cross piece that goes from the waist directly fits into the V. It's a brilliant design. So all of it comes apart and very easily movable. And what I wanted to do also with this one is I wanted to sort of work with the seasons. So this one is about harvest. It's also warmer. The covering for the dress is made out of sweaters, secondhand sweaters that I dyed and then felted, and then used things like sleeves or whatever to be pockets to be able to put stuff in. And the inside is lined with old jute bags, basically coffee bags. So this is a second iteration of this skirt. So as you can see, they kind of progress over time as I get opportunities to show them. And this one was part of the Flatlanders and Surface Dwellers group exhibition curated by Leah Anderson at 516 Arts Gallery in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I also wanted to show how this tent or whatever could be in a non-urban setting. So we also set up this photo shoot, and the curator's daughter volunteered to be the performer for this. So that was really fun. And I also worked with a local food forager, and she sort of showed me different things, different kinds of foods and plants that were medicinal and edible around Albuquerque. But the thing that I really loved was the cholla plant, the cholla cactus. And on the right is me picking it. And you can see I'm using really large what do you call those? I have it written here someplace. They're like what you use for barbecue or whatever.
Tongs.
Tongs, yeah, they're large tongs, and they are. This plant is super, super thorny. Its sort of nickname is called jumping cactus because it feels like you just go near it and the thorns jump on you. They don't actually, but it's so thorny that you have to be very, very careful. Now, I've worked with thorns a lot in my own work, so I'm super comfortable with this, but this food forager also showed me how to take the thorns off. We had this whole setup. And then at the gallery, at the opening of the show, we cooked the cactus up with some veggies and stuff, and then we passed that around to people in the show. And if you're curious, it kind of tastes like asparagus, and it kind of has a texture of okra. It's a little bit, but it's totally edible. And this is a old native food that people would use. I mean, I don't think they use it all the time because it's kind of heavy to process. But in times of drought or whatever, this is kind of food that they could rely on. And here's a couple of photos of the nomadic harvest dress at the Begovich Gallery, again in Fullerton, California, where she made a soup. And the piece now has a small propane stove and a pot that goes along with the whole outfit. And what was I going to say? What we did in Fullerton, we were very lucky that we also worked with the Arboretum. The campus there has this large Arboretum that's barely used. It's an old orange grove. So anyways, that was another great collaboration, was to be able to work with the Arboretum people. And this one, thirdly, is the traveling seed bomb dress. This one, because I did a residency there, I was able to develop this piece there. This is its sort of architectural and botanical references are a teepee hybrid equipped for the storing and sharing of seeds. The design is inspired by the pine cone. You know, pine cones open when they're wet or they're humid or with heat, and that enables them to disperse their seeds. So the design is also like that. So these struts that you see, the wooden struts that you see around the skirt, are actual several pieces that are hinged together. So when she gets out of it, she can take these pieces and they all fold up, and then you can tie them together at the top. And what I liked about this one was that it also has more headroom than the other ones. So I keep sort of improving on the design aspects. So this one, let's see, she has, what was it, 40? Houses, no, 50 glass vials filled with enough seed to plant over an acre of vegetables, grains, and herbs to feed a family for 1 year. So the aim, of course, is to talk to people about seeds and stuff like that. So we made seed bombs. So that's what these little brown balls are. And then the vials actually show the seeds. That was important to me because seeds often come in packets and you don't see them. So they hang like all the way around her skirt. And for the opening, what we did was, this is Agent Seed Bomb, as we called her, and she's an agent provocateur, and she walks around, in this instance, gifting this seed money to people during the exhibition, the opening night, I should say, of the exhibition. And the seed money was actually created by Leah Redman, who's also in California. And these are, you might have seen this kind of thing before. It's a little bit more popular now, but she originally made this, and it's handmade paper that's embedded with seeds. So if you plant the little piece of money in the soil, the seed can actually sprout. So again, with the seed bombs and the seed money, it's just a great way to engage with people during performances. And gifting is something that I found that works really well. Like I said, I don't really want to be preachy, so I like just inviting people, and they just often open up and start talking about things. So the other thing I wanted to talk about, which was interesting because you guys were talking about bread and puppet theater. This is our own version of that in Vancouver. They were called the Public Dream Society, and they did community theater in the park. This is 1986. That's me in the corner there with the white face. And we made puppets and we put on shows in the park and all sorts of situations and stuff. And when I graduated from art school, I thought, wow, this is the community for me. This is exactly what I want to do. And I worked with them. They would do a performance or some kind of production every summer. But I eventually kind of burnt out on it. And, I was kind of disappointed. I would move on to something else. And what I've learned over the years is that really, art groups and these kinds of communities, they're all processes that evolve, and like we evolve, and they evolve over time. And you'll find that you go in and out of different things as you evolve also as an artist, right? So your ideas and your plans might change. So the other thing that the skill that I've learned is to be open to change, because the thing is everything will change. It always does. So that's one thing that we can be pretty much sure of. And I lastly just want to talk to you briefly about the new work that I'm doing, which is with biomaterials. This is a piece called The Algae Mantle. It was shown last year at the Flow ILM event in Wilmington, North Carolina, as part of the university there. This is a wearable piece. A dancer was wearing it. I've been working with biomaterials mostly made out of alginate. Alginate is made from seaweed. So I created all of this work through developing that process. And I'm hoping that next year there'll be another event and I'm going to create a new one. So I've spent the past year and a half experimenting, trying to make these materials work. The other one that I work with a lot is gelatin, just regular old gelatin that you make food with. And so I also want to say that if you're interested in this work, I post a lot on Facebook and Instagram because I'm experimenting. I'm posting all new things all the time. None of this stuff is on my website, but the previous pieces, they're all on my website if you want to go there and check that out. So I just wanted to say thank you and merci, and I'm really open to any kind of questions you have. Stop share.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Where did it? Oh, there you are. Okay. I was like, wait, did she exit this chat? There's so many beautiful gems to touch upon. One thing I just want to say before we take questions is something that I was recognizing the connection between working ephemerally with materials, like embracing the ephemerality of materials and being with the ephemerality of some creative projects like you're talking about. Because I know that, and I've experienced that before, where you get really exciting. You're like, this is the thing, and it has its moment, it has its sort of climax, and then it organically, it changes, morphs into new things, and there's like a grieving process with that. And I think a lot of times we think to ourselves, oh, what went wrong, right? But I really love the way of embracing that projects are ephemeral too, and just really being together in the moment when it's working and letting it transition to something else when it needs to.
Yeah, and I find that that's something that we have to learn ourselves because the art world isn't set up that way. The art
Right.
world wants you to do things. They want to be able to see what you've done before, and then you're going to do that again or whatever. They want a lot of continuity and permanence. And once you start working with natural materials, well, you're out of that game already. I mean, It's just the way that it's going to be. So you have to sort of find ways to, by either creating it yourself or find opportunities that allow you to sort of express that.
Yeah. And as you said, if you can't find a space to show your art, you have to create one. I love that so much.
Yeah. Don't get arrested though. That's the
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the process of trying to curate experimental art happenings in post-industrial semi-abandoned spaces in Cleveland. There's just so
yes.
many amazing spaces to explore that. I really love seeing your examples. Does anybody have any questions that came up throughout the talk that they want to, or just
So
conversation?
Megan said something about
Yeah.
how do you use gelatin? Yeah, so gelatin is a recipe of basically just like regular gelatin and water and glycerin. And you cook it up and then you pour it into molds or you pour it on a flat. I mean, it's complicated, believe me. I've been researching it for a long time, so I
I
haven't gone
use it. I
completely
I
down.
I use it in my practice too. So, and I use it for printmaking. I make my own plates. So that's why I was like,
Ah,
oh, I was just curious what you were using it for.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I actually I've taken a couple of classes, which unfortunately were all in Spanish. So, and I don't speak Spanish, so this is kind of a challenge for me. But they also, as some of the other people, now was talking about, making stuff from mycelium, eggshells, making, I mean, there's just so much happening right now with new materials, and I'm very excited about it. And I hope to be creating sort of sculptural pieces with it. But also because I used to do photography, I'd like to find a way to combine the photography and these mediums also. So we'll see where that goes.
Nicole, if you have any bio art resources to share, that would be amazing, but certainly no pressure. I think there is a database online of
Oh,
bio.
there's many. There's many.
Yeah, and I have a couple links in our resources folder, and
Yeah.
Joanna has generously offered to throw some resources in there too, which would be amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you so
actually,
much.
I'll send it to you. I have a PDF with different
Awesome.
artists that
Hey,
I've been following for a long time and
awesome.
different places where you can find recipes. But
Amazing.
just to know that it's also there's two things with it. It's very experimental. So I like to compare it to when people made their own paints. So Michelangelo, he
Mhm.
was probably going, "Oh, what do I do to what additive do I put in for this, carmine or whatever, to work?" So we're kind of at that stage with
Mhm.
biomaterials now. So we got 100 years at least to go before it's something you can go and buy in a store like a tube of paint, but um, there's workshops out there that, and when you get recipes, there's a lot more to it. It's kind of like cooking. I'm actually not much of a cook, but it's sort of comparable to making a cake. Like if you got a recipe for a cake, but it didn't have all of the stages of how to do it, I mean, it wouldn't turn out that great. So that's part of it also, is finding out what the actual process is, and of course, like I said, a lot of that is still being discovered.
Awesome. Does anybody else have a question before we wrap up? Yes, Seth.
I still haven't formulated it, but I guess I'm largely in theater spaces all day long, and one of the reasons I'm in this space is to think about some things that I think theater people are really not thinking about a lot of times. And I feel
Mhm.
like your work is so great in integrating all of that. Like it makes sense why you I guess exist more in a visual art context or whatever, but clearly like the side about you call it performance and it is performance, and I think you referred to them as actors, am I right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I just want to hear more about what you think about that piece and why that piece is so important, and how it is involves the dialogue part of what your work is with the community.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, I worked in theater for about 10 years. I was lucky to actually work for a French theater company here in Vancouver, which was amazing. So I got a community that way. And they did a lot of children's theater. And the children's theater really helped me sort of open up my creativity because what you have to do for a children's show, generally they travel, they'll go to schools and all this kind of stuff. So they're on the road. And you have to make something big, something that's kind of, big and visual for the kids, but then it's got to come apart really quickly because the actors are the ones that are taking it apart. They got to put it in the van and drive to the next school. So this was sort of my formation, because I didn't go to theater school at all. I ended up into visual arts, and ironically, I ended up there anyways in theater, and I worked primarily for like small theater companies. So like this French theater company was a small theater, not the big theater companies. So that allows you, a lot of freedom to do interesting things. And I got to work with some very interesting people. But at the same time, there's a burnout level to theater also because it's not very well paid at all. So, like I won some awards for some of my shows and stuff like that. But I stayed up till 4 o'clock in the morning just sewing those, whatever it was, or I'd be doing it just as they were getting into the van and they had to leave for the next town. So there's a certain amount of craziness to it. And
Yeah,
when
it's
I finally
unsustainable is a good word for it.
decided, yeah. And when I decided to stop doing that as work, I thought, you know what? I want to make my own characters. I want to develop my own characters and sort of not put on my own shows, but at least write my own stories. So I didn't go into this whole other series that I have, which is called We Jokes, and they're all these. I showed the little green dress project, but I did a whole series of those, and they all had backstories. So in my mind, I was writing the backstory to the character, and that would help the actors sort of understand who they were embodying. But it was a lot about improv too. And
Yeah.
So for me, also the other thing that's been there for me is that I'm not an actor. I'm actually an introvert. I'm happy to be at home or in my studio making stuff, And my reasoning was that when I saw actors perform, I thought they're so into it. They just love being out there, And I go, oh my God, I would hate doing that. I really would. And but eventually I actually started doing some of my own, like that piece that I showed you at the very end, the one that's behind me, the algae mantle. I wore that this no last spring for it's called Fashion Revolution. It's a worldwide kind of movement, and I wore it and talked to people on the street and stuff like that. And I was happy to do that. It's sort of break out of my shell. So that's a good way also. But I have to say that at the end of the day, I thought, an actor or performer or dancer, somebody who's more extroverted would maybe have done this better.
Yeah. And I think you helped me figure out my actual question, which is how much is it about just finding the right person who is just literally interested in these sort of ecological ideas and some of the reasons why you're making the work you make, and just getting them and then just putting them in the right place in the right time. And obviously they're wearing your costume, so that's changing them already and all that kind of stuff. Or are you like a director and you're like coaching them on how to be and how to engage with the audience?
Well, a little bit of both. So I am kind of a director. We spend time, me and the performer, we spend time beforehand talking about the character and developing it. And but then again, we're also I'm letting them improvise. So a lot of stuff comes out of the improvisation too. So, but I have had ones that don't work so well. So some people who were doing it just for a job, really, I mean, because I pay them. Uh, so it's a balance, and I have found over time to kind of trust my instincts a little bit more in collaborating with people because I have to feel comfortable with them also. Um, but I've also become a director in the sense that I've started making short films. I saw that somebody posted my last film, Chronos, and that was a whole different experience, right? So from theater to film is a big, big leap. And from theater, being a designer, to then being a director in a film situation is something that I'm not completely sold on yet. I was uncomfortable with that situation. Film is a lot more like regular film. Like this is just a short film, but it's still, like a professional crew and everything. It's definitely not into any kind of improvisation. And people in film crews are very siloed. They have their particular job, and you can only talk to them about that particular job. So I actually want to make more films, but I am looking how I can find community where I can feel comfortable as an artist in that community and not necessarily in the film world. I find the film world a little bit too restrictive. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
yeah. Because
Awesome.
I was a photographer beforehand, so I would take photographs of everything, and I would like stage photo shoots and make all the sets and the costumes and stuff like that. But one time, I didn't show it today, but I have another short film. The first one I made is called Persephone. Well, it's actually called Waiting for Spring, but you can see that on my website. And that one, I had invited a videographer to the photo shoot. And then when I saw her move, I went, oh my God, she just has to be moving. I mean, a still photo is never going to capture this. This is being embodied by someone, which I was getting in performance, but I don't get in photography. So I thought I have to launch into film. But I'm not sure about that yet, for myself anyways.
Sure. Well, the interdisciplinarity of it is really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
And I love that you put a skill, that you translated each thing into a skill. That was really illuminating for me to think about.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't think about those things really. They just sort of happen because this whole process has brought those things to me. Um, but I realize that I have developed skills over time in working in this kind of milieu, and like this kind of class is so phenomenal because it's helping people navigate that process.
Yeah. Those are not
There's
skills
not a
that we're
lot of
normally,
that.
I'm not normally teaching those kind of skills. I don't know, but I'm sure other people here are, but it's
I really
Yeah,
I really appreciate just hearing your process, even just thinking through like how you respond to film, just being in the wayfinding of that, figuring that out. I think that's just so helpful because we're all kind of navigating that in our own ways. Thank you so much, Nicole. It was so great to have you. Yeah, really enjoyed your artist talk, and thank you everybody for coming. Hopefully you have a partner. If you don't, email me. Um, Please meet with them at some point in the next 2 weeks, if possible, just to touch base about what you're thinking about with your project. And our next class, you'll be sharing, and I'll invite you, Nicole, too. We have 2 more classes left. They're spread out a month apart. And our next class, everybody's going to share their research of where they're at with what they're working on. And then our final class will be a little bit more of a formal research presentation. I still call it research because we're very much emphasizing having a process-oriented approach, not a product-oriented approach. But so we're just at different stages in the project, right? Thank you guys so much. And please email me if you have any questions or you want to meet for a one-on-one. Yeah, lovely to be with you all today.
Okay.
And I'll send the recording out to everyone, including you, Nicole.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Okay.